$1. That was it. On a dinner bill that cost more than most people earn in 3 months, he left exactly one single, crisp dollar bill. For Linda, that dollar wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration of war. She stood there, trembling, watching the taillights of the limousine fade into the rainy night. Most people would have cried. Most people would have cursed him under their breath and moved on. But Linda Vance didn't do what most people did. She grabbed her coat, she grabbed that dollar, and she ran out into the storm. She had no idea that chasing down the country's most ruthless billionaire over a $1 tip wasn't going to get her fired. It was going to hand her the keys to an empire. But first, she had to survive the night. The clang of silverware against fine china was the only music Linda Vance knew anymore. It was 8 p.m. at the Obsidian, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, and her feet were already bleeding inside her cheap, second-hand heels. "Table 4 needs a refill on the sparkling water, Linda." "Move it," snapped Julian, the floor manager. Julian was a man who believed kindness was a weakness, and that shouting was a management style. "On it, Julian," Linda said, her voice steady, though her hands shook slightly as she reached for the crystal pitcher. She was 24, brilliant and completely invisible. Nobody at the Obsidian knew that Linda had been top of her class in forensic accounting before her mother's cancer diagnosis wiped out their savings, their home, and her future. Now, she wasn't a scholar. She was just the girl who refilled water glasses for men who wore watches worth more than her entire life's earnings. Tonight, the atmosphere in the restaurant was different. Heavy, electric. The whispers started in the kitchen. "He's here," the sous chef muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Sterling. He actually came. Marcus Sterling. The name alone could drop the stock market by 10 points. He was the CEO of Sterling Global, a man known as the Iron Wolf. He was 32, devastatingly handsome in a cold, predatory way, and rumored to be heartless. He was also rumored to be looking for a wife, not for love, but to secure his inheritance before his 33rd birthday, a clause in his late father's will that the tabloids were eating up. Linda adjusted her apron. She didn't care about billionaires. She cared about the eviction notice tucked in her purse. She needed tips. Big ones. "Linda," Julian hissed, grabbing her arm. "You're taking the VIP section. Sarah went home sick. Don't mess this up. If you spill a drop, you're out." Linda swallowed hard. "I won't." She walked onto the floor. Table 1, the prime spot by the window overlooking the city skyline, was occupied by 3 men. 2 were clearly lawyers, sharks in gray suits. The third was Marcus Sterling. He didn't look up when she approached. He was reading a document, his brow furrowed, his jaw set tight. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. "Good evening, gentlemen," Linda said, her voice practiced and polite. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The lawyer on the left, a man named Silas Thorne, sneered. "Scotch, blue label, neat, and be quick about it." Marcus didn't speak. He simply tapped a finger on the table. Linda moved with efficiency. She served the drinks. She took the orders. Wagyu beef, truffle risotto, a bottle of Chateau Margaux. Throughout the 2-hour meal, she was a ghost. She refilled glasses before they were empty. She cleared plates. The second forks were down. She was perfect. She overheard snippets of their conversation. They were talking about a merger, a hostile takeover of a tech firm. "The numbers don't add up, Marcus," Silas said, keeping his voice low. "If we acquire Vantech, the debt load will crush us. The board will vote you out." "The numbers lie because people lie, Silas," Marcus said. His voice was a deep baritone that vibrated through the air. It was the first time he had spoken. "Find the leak. Someone is cooking the books at Vantech." "We've had 3 audit teams look at it," Silas argued. "They found nothing." "Then look again," Marcus commanded. Linda poured wine into Marcus's glass. Her eyes flickered to the open document on the table. It was a balance sheet. In less than a second, her trained eye caught an anomaly in the amortization column. It was a classic shell company structure, buried 3 layers deep. She almost spoke. She almost pointed it out. "Don't do it, Linda," she told herself. You're a waitress. You're invisible." She stepped back. The dinner ended. The bill came. It was $5.400. Marcus signed the receipt without looking. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. The lawyers scrambled to follow him. Linda walked over to the table, her heart pounding. A bill that size usually meant a tip of at least $1,000. That money would pay the rent. It would buy her mother's medication for 2 months. It was salvation. She picked up the leather folder. She opened it. Her breath hitched. Her blood ran cold. Inside, on the tip line, there was a single stroke of a pen, a dash. And resting on top of the merchant copy receipt was a single crumpled $1 bill. $1. Linda looked at the empty table. She looked at the dollar. It wasn't a mistake, it was a statement. It was a deliberate act of cruelty from a man who had everything toward a woman who had nothing. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and angry. She looked out the window. Marcus Sterling was walking toward his limousine, the rain beginning to pour. Something inside Linda snapped. It wasn't despair. It was rage. "No," she whispered. She grabbed the dollar bill. She didn't clean the table. She didn't check out with Julian. She ran. The rain was coming down in sheets, turning the New York streets into rivers of oil and neon reflections. Linda burst out of the heavy oak doors of the Obsidian, her uniform soaked in seconds. The black limousine was idling at the curb. The driver was holding the back door open for Marcus. "Hey!" Linda screamed, her voice cracking against the thunder. "Hey, you!" The lawyers, Silas and the other associate, stopped and looked back, horrified. A waitress, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, sprinting toward the richest man in the city. Marcus Sterling paused. He had one foot inside the car. He turned slowly, his gray eyes narrowing. Linda skidded to a halt 3 feet away from him. She was shivering, but she stood tall. She held out her hand. The wet, crumpled dollar bill sat on her palm. "You forgot this," she said, her voice shaking with adrenaline. Silas stepped forward, looking like he was about to call security. "Young woman, have you lost your mind? Get back inside." "I said," Linda ignored the lawyer, locking eyes with Marcus. "You forgot this." Marcus stepped back from the car. The rain hammered against his expensive suit, but he didn't seem to notice. He looked at the dollar, then at her face. "I didn't forget it," Marcus said coolly. "That was your tip." "This isn't a tip," Linda snapped. "This is an insult. And, quite frankly, if this is all you can spare on a $5,000 dinner, you obviously need it more than I do." The silence that followed was deafening. The driver's jaw dropped. Silas looked apoplectic. No one spoke to Marcus Sterling like that. Linda grabbed Marcus's hand, a shocking breach of protocol, and slapped the wet dollar bill into his palm. "Take it," she hissed. "I work for a living. I don't beg. And I certainly don't accept charity from men who think dignity has a price tag." She turned around, her heart hammering so hard she thought she might faint. She had done it. She had kept her pride, but she had certainly lost her job. Julian would fire her before she even dried off. "Wait." The voice was commanded, not asked. "Marcus." Linda stopped, but didn't turn. "What? You want to yell at me now?" "You looked at the Vantech files," Marcus said. Linda turned around slowly. "Excuse me?" "At the table," Marcus said, stepping closer to her, invading her personal space. He smelled of rain and expensive cologne. "When you poured the wine, you looked at the balance sheet. You paused. Your breathing changed. Why?" Linda blinked, the rain dripping from her eyelashes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," Marcus said softly. "You saw something. What was it?" Linda looked at him. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes again. She saw a man surrounded by sharks who didn't know who to trust. And she realized she had nothing left to lose. "The amortization column," she said, her voice cutting through the storm. "Row 14. The assets are being depreciated at a rate of 40% per quarter. That's illegal, unless they are intangible assets being transferred offshore. Someone is stripping the company of value before you buy it. They're selling you an empty shell. Silas, the lawyer, let out a scoff. She's a waitress, Marcus. She doesn't know what she's... Shut up, Silas. Marcus didn't look away from Linda. You're sure? Marcus asked her. I was top of my class at Columbia Finance before I had to drop out, Linda said, lifting her chin. I know a shell game when I see one. You're being played. Marcus stared at her for a long, intense moment. The rain continued to pour, soaking them both to the bone. He looked at the wet dollar bill in his hand. Then he looked at the restaurant where Julian was currently staring out the window, looking furious. You're fired, Marcus said. Linda felt her stomach drop. I figured. No, Marcus corrected. I mean, you're fired from there. He pointed at the restaurant. Get in the car. Linda took a step back. What? I need a forensic accountant who isn't on my payroll and isn't afraid to throw money back in my face. Marcus opened the car door wider. I'll pay you $10,000 for tonight. If you're right about the Vantech files, I'll pay you $100,000. Linda froze. $10,000. That was the debt. That was the rent. That was everything. And if I'm wrong, she asked cautiously. Marcus finally smiled. It was a terrifying, sharp smile. If you're wrong, Miss Vance, Linda Vance. If you're wrong, Miss Vance, I'll leave you on the side of the highway in the rain. Do we have a deal? Linda looked at the warm, leather interior of the car. She looked at the angry manager in the window of the restaurant. She looked at Marcus Sterling, the devil offering her a hand. She took a deep breath. Deal. The interior of the limousine was quiet as a tomb. The transition from the chaotic, freezing rain to the hermetically sealed luxury of the car was jarring. Linda sat on the edge of the cream leather seat, dripping water onto the plush carpet. She shivered, hugging her arms around herself. Marcus sat opposite her. He didn't offer her a towel. He didn't offer her a coat. He simply pressed a button on the intercom. Go to the tower. Private entrance. He reached into a hidden compartment, pulled out a tablet, and tossed it onto the seat next to her. Prove it, he said. Linda's hands were numb from the cold, but her mind was firing on all cylinders. She picked up the tablet. It was locked. Passcode is 8,855, he said, watching her like a hawk, watching a mouse. She entered the code. The Vantech merger files were there. Thousands of pages of financial data. I need 20 minutes, Linda said, her eyes already scanning the digital pages. You have 10, Marcus replied, pulling out his phone. We arrive at Sterling Tower in 15. If you haven't found the paper trail by then, don't bother getting out of the car. Silas, the lawyer sitting next to Marcus, looked like he had swallowed a lemon. Marcus, this is insane. This is a breach of confidentiality. She is a waitress. You are handing sensitive corporate data to a random woman who chased us for $1. She didn't chase us for the dollar, Silas, Marcus said without looking up from his phone. She chased us for her dignity. There's a difference. And right now, dignity is the only asset I can't buy. Linda tuned them out. The world narrowed down to numbers. Numbers were safe. Numbers didn't lie. Only people did. She scrolled frantically. Row 14. Where is the corresponding ledger entry? She swiped through the files. There. A transfer to a subsidiary called Orion Holdings in the Cayman Highlands. She cross-referenced Orion Holdings. It was listed as a consulting firm. 5 minutes, Marcus said. I found the transfer, Linda muttered, her finger tracing the line. But I need the signatory. Who authorized the transfer? She hacked through the digital clutter. The files were encrypted, but the metadata wasn't scrubbed properly. It was amateur hour. Whoever was stealing from Vantech was arrogant. They thought no one would look this deep. 2 minutes. Gotcha, Linda whispered. The car slowed down. They were pulling into an underground garage. Time's up, Marcus said, reaching for the tablet. Wait. Linda pulled the tablet back. Look at this. She turned the screen toward him. The asset transfer was authorized by a digital signature key. The key belongs to the CFO of Vantech, obviously. But look at the timestamp. Marcus leaned in, his eyes narrowing. 3 a.m. local time. And look at the IP address of the authorization. Linda pointed to a string of numbers. That IP isn't from the Vantech headquarters. It's not even from the CFO's home. Where is it from? Silas asked, his curiosity finally outweighing his snobbery. Linda looked up, her eyes meeting Marcus's. It's from here, New York. Marcus went still. Trace it. I did, Linda said. It traces back to a private server located at 550 Madison Avenue. The air was sucked out of the car. Even Silas gasped. 550 Madison Avenue was the headquarters of Archer Dynamics, Sterling Global's biggest rival. They aren't just stealing the money, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. They are sabotaging the company so that when I buy it, Archer Dynamics can expose the fraud and tank my stock price. He looked at Linda. The coldness in his eyes was gone, replaced by a burning intensity. You just saved me $2 billion, he said. The car stopped. The driver opened the door. Come with me, Marcus said to Linda. I look like a drowned rat, Linda stammered, looking down at her uniform. I don't care if you're wearing a trash bag, Marcus said, stepping out. You're the only person in this city who isn't trying to stab me in the back. Tonight, you're not a waitress, you're my personal auditor. Linda stepped out into the bright lights of the garage. She followed Marcus toward a private elevator. But as the doors were closing, she saw Silas pull out his phone and type a frantic text message. She felt a knot form in her stomach. She had just exposed a massive conspiracy, and she had a feeling the people behind it wouldn't be happy. The private elevator ascended with a stomach-churning smoothness, rising 50 floors in under 30 seconds. Linda stood in the corner, clutching her arms, watching the numbers tick upward. Every reflective surface in the chrome-paneled car threw back her reflection, a girl with raccoon eye mascara, frizzy wet hair, and a stained server's uniform that smelled like stale wine and rain. Standing next to Marcus Sterling, who looked like a GQ cover model even when damp, she felt like a different species. The doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing not an office, but a sprawling penthouse that spanned the entire top floor of the Sterling Tower. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree view of Manhattan, a glittering grid of lights that seemed a million miles away from the struggle of her daily life. Kitchen is to the left, showers are to the right, Marcus said, tossing his suit jacket onto a $20,000 sofa without a second thought. There are clothes in the guest suite closet. Pick something. You can't work freezing to death. Linda didn't move. I'm not here for a wardrobe change, Mr. Sterling. I'm here for $10,000. Marcus stopped and turned, his expression unreadable. You'll get your money. But my forensic accountant needs to be focused. You're shivering. Go. It was a command, not a suggestion. Linda gritted her teeth and went to the right. The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment in Queens. The shower was a waterfall of hot steam that melted the ice in her bones. She scrubbed the makeup off her face, washed the hairspray out of her hair, and stepped out, wrapping herself in a fluffy white towel. She opened the closet. It was filled with women's clothes, high-end designer wear. His girlfriends, she wondered, or maybe a sister. She ignored the cocktail dresses and found a simple cashmere sweater and a pair of tailored black trousers that were slightly too long but manageable. When she returned to the main living area, the transformation was complete. She wasn't the waitress anymore. She looked sharp, intelligent, and ready for war. Marcus was standing by a massive oak desk, 3 monitors glowing in front of him. He had 2 phones to his ear. I don't care what time it is. Wake him up. Marcus barked into one phone. And tell security to sweep the perimeter. I want a full lockdown. He hung up and looked at Linda. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, but he buried it instantly. Better, he said. Sit. Linda sat. The chair was Italian leather. I've pulled the raw data from the Vantech servers, Marcus said, sliding a keyboard toward her. If Archer Dynamics is sabotaging the deal, they need an inside man. Someone at Vantech had to open the back door for them. Linda cracked her knuckles. Not necessarily. If they have a spoofed admin key, they could do it from the outside. But she started typing. her fingers flying across the keys. The code reflected in her eyes. If they wanted to depreciate the assets that fast, they would need authorization from the legal department to approve the write-offs. Legal? Marcus frowned. Vantech's legal team is solid. I vetted them myself. Did you? Linda asked without looking up. Or did your lawyers vet them? The question hung in the air. Marcus went silent. He walked over to the window, looking out at the city. Silas Thorne has been with my family for 20 years. He was my father's best friend. He held the company together when my father died. Numbers don't care about friendship, Marcus, Linda said softly. She felt a pang of sympathy for him. It was lonely at the top, and it was about to get lonelier. Here, Linda pointed at the screen. Look at this. Marcus walked over, leaning over her shoulder. His proximity was distracting. He radiated heat and power, but Linda forced herself to focus on the spreadsheet. The asset write-offs were approved at 4:15 p.m. today, Linda explained, digitally signed by the Vantech legal compliance officer. But look at the metadata on the signature. She highlighted a string of code. It's a remote approval, Marcus read. Routed through. He stopped. His face went pale. Routed through a VPN. Linda finished for him. A VPN, hosted on the Sterling Global Private Network. That means the approval came from inside my company, Marcus whispered. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Someone in my building approved the fraud that is destroying the company I'm about to buy. Linda typed another command. I can trace the user ID. It's encrypted, but if I run a brute force decryption on the user hash... The screen flashed red. Access denied. They're blocking me, Linda said, typing faster. Someone knows we're looking. They just put up a firewall. Bypass it, Marcus ordered. I'm trying. It's military-grade encryption. Who manages your cybersecurity? Silas, Marcus said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. Silas oversees the cyber division. The lights in the penthouse flickered. Then, the massive monitors went black. The hum of the air conditioning died. The electronic locks on the penthouse doors clicked loudly. Silence descended on the room. What just happened? Linda stood up, her heart racing. Marcus pulled out his phone. Dead. No signal. He walked to the landline on his desk. He picked it up and listened. Dead. We're offline, Marcus said, his voice calm but terrifyingly cold. He cut the hard line. Who? Silas. Marcus turned to the heavy steel doors of the elevator. And he knows we're up here. The penthouse, once a symbol of limitless power, had instantly transformed into a gilded cage. The blackout curtains had been drawn earlier, plunging the room into absolute darkness, save for the emergency lights that bathed the hallway in an eerie red glow. Stay away from the windows, Marcus commanded, moving with the agility of a soldier. He went to a wall panel, pressed his thumb against a scanner, which thankfully had battery backup, and a hidden compartment slid open. Inside was a gleaming silver handgun. Linda's eyes widened. You have a gun? Rich people get kidnapped, Linda. It comes with the territory. He checked the chamber and tucked it into his waistband. Silas isn't just a lawyer. He fixes problems. And right now, I'm the problem. I thought I was the problem, Linda said, her voice trembling slightly. You're the witness, Marcus said grimly. That's worse. A loud thud echoed from the elevator shaft, the sound of metal grinding on metal. They've overridden the elevator lockout, Marcus said. They're coming up. We have maybe 3 minutes. We can't go down the elevator, Linda said, looking around frantically. And the fire stairs? Electronic locks. Mags sealed during a lockdown. We're trapped. Linda's mind raced. She thought about the balance sheets, the numbers, the logic. There was always a loophole. There was always a way to balance the equation. The server, she blurted out. Marcus looked at her. What? You said Silas oversees the cyber division. That means he controls the cloud data. If he wipes the servers remotely, the proof of his treason disappears. He wins. He's probably doing that right now, Marcus said. No, Linda shook her head. He can't. The Vantech merger data is on a physical isolation drive because of the audit protocols. It's not on the cloud. It's in the building's server core. Basement level 4. So? So, if we can get to the server room physically, we can pull the hard drive before he can manually override the safety protocols to wipe it. But we have to get there. We are 50 floors up, locked in, with a hit squad coming up the elevator, Marcus pointed out. Linda ran to the kitchen. She grabbed a heavy fire extinguisher. The service lift, she said. Restaurants, hotels, they all have dumbwaiters or service lifts for laundry and food carts. This place is serviced by a catering company, isn't it? Marcus looked at the wall behind the kitchen pantry. The dumbwaiter, it's too small for a person. For you, maybe, Linda said. She was slender, petite. I can fit. Absolutely not, Marcus grabbed her arm. I'm not sending you into a shaft alone. Do you have a better idea? Linda shouted, the first time she had raised her voice at him since the street. They're going to kill us, Marcus. If I get down to the service floor, floor 48, I can manually trigger the fire alarm. The fire protocol unlocks the stairwells automatically. Then you can come down. The elevator chime dinged. It was on the 48th floor, approaching fast. Marcus looked at the elevator, then at Linda. He saw the fire in her eyes. The same fire that made her chase a limousine in the rain for $1. Go, he said. He pushed the pantry shelf aside, revealing the small metal door of the dumbwaiter. Linda scrambled inside. It was a tight squeeze, smelling of dust and old grease. She curled her knees to her chest. I'll hold them off here, Marcus said. He handed her his phone, even though it had no signal. If you get a signal, call the FBI. Agent Miller. He's the only one I trust. Don't die, Linda whispered. I'm too expensive to die. Marcus gave her a crooked smirk. He hit the button. The dumbwaiter jolted and began to descend into the darkness of the shaft. Above her, Linda heard the penthouse elevator doors blow open. She heard shouting. Then, she heard the deafening crack of a gunshot. She bit her hand to stop from screaming. The dumbwaiter rattled downward. Floor 49. Floor 48. The cart stopped. Linda kicked the latch open and tumbled out onto the floor of the catering kitchen on the 48th floor. It was dark and empty. She scrambled to her feet and ran for the red box on the wall. Fire alarm! She didn't hesitate. She grabbed a frying pan from a rack and smashed the glass. She yanked the lever down. Whoop, whoop, whoop! Strobe lights began to flash. The maglocks on the stairwell doors clicked open with a heavy thud. Linda didn't run down. She ran up. She burst into the stairwell and sprinted up the 2 flights to the penthouse landing. She had to know if Marcus was alive. She swung the door open. The penthouse was in chaos. 2 men in tactical gear were on the floor, unconscious. Marcus was wrestling with a third man, a giant, near the broken window. The giant had Marcus by the throat, dangling him over the edge of the shattered glass. The wind whipped into the room, howling. Hey! Linda screamed. The giant turned. Linda raised the fire extinguisher she had dragged from the kitchen and sprayed it full blast into his face. The chemical cloud blinded him. He roared and let go of Marcus to claw at his eyes. Marcus didn't waste the second. He delivered a brutal kick to the man's knee, shattering it, and then shoved him hard. The man stumbled back, tripped over the sofa, and cracked his head against the marble coffee table. He went still. Marcus fell to his knees, gasping for air. His lip was bleeding, and his shirt was torn. Linda dropped the extinguisher and ran to him. We have to go. Now. You came back, Marcus wheezed, looking at her with disbelief. I told you to go down. I don't listen to orders from bad tippers, she said, pulling him up. They stumbled into the stairwell just as the elevator pinged again. More men. To the basement, Marcus said, wiping the blood from his mouth. 50 floors. Can you make it? I waited tables and heels for 6 years, Linda said, kicking off her borrowed designer shoes and standing in her stocking feet. I can run a marathon. They ran, down the concrete spiral, their footsteps echoing like heartbeats. By the time they reached the lobby level, their lungs were burning. But they couldn't stop. They bypassed the lobby, which was likely swarming with Silas's men, and went deeper. B1, B2, B3, B4, the server core. The door was heavy steel. "It's biometrically locked," Marcus said. "My prints won't work if Silas has locked me out of the system." He tried the scanner. "Access denied." "Damn it!" Marcus slammed his fist against the steel. "Move!" Linda said. She pulled a small hairpin from her pocket. "Linda, that is a titanium electronic lock. You can't pick it with a hairpin." "I'm not picking the lock," she said. She jammed the pin into the small reset hole at the bottom of the panel, holding it there while simultaneously smashing the plastic casing with the heel of the fire extinguisher she had carried all the way down. She exposed the wiring. "Red to black creates a short circuit in the failsafe," she muttered. "If the system thinks there's a power surge, it defaults to open for safety." She ripped 2 wires out and touched them together. Sparks flew. Click-clunk. The heavy door groaned open. Marcus stared at her. "Where did you learn that?" "My ex-boyfriend was a locksmith. He talked in his sleep." They rushed inside. The room was freezing, filled with the hum of massive server towers. Blue lights blinked in the darkness. "There," Marcus pointed to the central isolation unit. "That drive." He ran to it and began the ejection sequence. "Marcus," Linda warned, "we have company." She pointed to the security monitor on the wall. The elevator in the hallway outside was descending. The number changed to B4. "It's Silas," Marcus said. "He's coming to finish it himself." He yanked the hard drive out. It was a heavy, brick-sized metal cartridge. "There's no other exit," Linda whispered. "Yes, there is." Marcus looked at the ventilation grates on the floor. Massive industrial fans pushed air up through the cooling system. "The cooling tunnels," Marcus said. "They vent out to the subway station next door." "That sounds dangerous," Linda said. "More dangerous than him?" Marcus pointed at the door. The handle of the server room door began to turn. Marcus grabbed Linda's hand. He pulled up the grate. "Jump!" They dropped into the darkness of the tunnel just as the server room door burst open and Silas Thorne walked in, a silenced pistol in his hand. He saw the empty drive bay. He saw the open grate. He screamed in rage, the sound echoing down the tunnel after them. But they were already gone, sliding down the metal chute into the bowels of the city. The slide down the cooling chute ended abruptly on a pile of industrial trash bags. Marcus and Linda tumbled out onto the concrete platform of a maintenance access tunnel, coughing as the dust settled around them. The roar of a subway train echoed in the distance, a rhythmic clack, clack, clack that vibrated through the floor. "Welcome to the underworld," Linda muttered, brushing soot off her face. She looked at Marcus. The Iron Wolf of Wall Street was covered in grime, his knuckles bruised, his shirt torn open. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a brawler who had just lost a fight behind a dive bar. "We need to move," Marcus said, clutching the hard drive against his chest like it was the crown jewels. "If Silas controls the security grid, he'll track us the moment we surface near the tower. We need to get to Agent Miller." "No," Linda said, grabbing his arm. "We can't trust anyone. Silas framed you for fraud from inside your own building. Who do you think pays Agent Miller? Or his boss?" Marcus hesitated. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the grim reality of their situation. "So what do? We can't stay in the tunnels." "We go to the one place people like Silas Thorne never look," Linda said. "We go to Queens." They climbed a rusted ladder and emerged onto the platform of the 53rd Street station just as an E-train screeched to a halt. It was 2 a.m. The car was half empty, populated by night shift workers and exhausted partygoers. When Marcus Sterling walked onto the subway car, heads turned. Even covered in dirt, he carried an aura of wealth that didn't belong there. He reached for his pocket to pay the fare, realized his wallet was gone, and froze. "Move!" Linda nudged him through the turnstile, swiping her own battered MetroCard. "My treat. That's $2.90. Add it to my tab." They sat in the corner of the rattling train. Marcus looked around nervously, eyeing a man sleeping with a newspaper over his face. "Relax," Linda whispered. "Nobody here cares who you are. They just want to get home." "I've never taken the subway," Marcus admitted, his voice low. "I take it twice a day," Linda said, leaning her head back against the grimy plastic window. "It gives you perspective." The ride took 40 minutes. They got off at Jackson Heights. The rain had stopped, but the streets were damp and smelled of wet pavement and spices. Linda led him down a narrow alleyway, up 3 flights of stairs in a walk-up building that had seen better decades, let alone days. She unlocked her door with trembling hands. It's not the Sterling Tower, but it's safe. The apartment was tiny. A studio with a pull-out couch, a kitchenette, and piles of books on finance and law stacked everywhere. On the small table lay a bright red envelope. Marcus picked it up. Final eviction notice. He looked at Linda. She was busy locking the 3 deadbolts on the door. "You're being evicted?" he asked quietly. Linda snatched the letter from his hand. "Forensic accounting degrees don't pay for themselves, Marcus, and neither does chemotherapy." She pointed to a framed photo on the wall of a smiling older woman. "My mom died 6 months ago. The medical bills ate everything. The house, the savings. This apartment is all I have left, and I'm losing it on Tuesday." Marcus went silent. He looked around the room, at the poverty, the struggle, and the sheer grit it took to survive it. He thought about the $1 he had left on the table. The shame hit him harder than the giant's fist had earlier. "I'm sorry," he said. And for the first time that night, he sounded like he truly meant it. "Save it," Linda said, pulling an old, duct-taped laptop from under her bed. "We have work to do. Plug the drive in." They connected the drive. Linda's old laptop groaned under the processing weight, but the files opened. "Okay," Linda said, cracking her fingers. "Let's see what Silas was so afraid of." They spent the next 3 hours combing through the data. It wasn't just embezzlement. It was worse. "Oh my God," Linda whispered at 5 a.m. "Look at these routing numbers. These aren't just offshore accounts. These are shell companies linked to the Sinaloa cartel." Marcus leaned in, his face pale. "Silas isn't just stealing from Vantech. He's using the merger to launder drug money. Vantech's international shipping logistics. He's going to use my company's fleet to move product globally." "If this merger goes through at 9 a.m., Linda said, "you won't just be bankrupt. You'll be an accessory to international drug trafficking. You'll spend the rest of your life in federal prison." Marcus stood up, pacing the small room. "The signing ceremony is at the Grand Hyatt. The entire board is there. The press, Silas will force the vote." "Then we have to stop it," Linda said. "We can't." Marcus pointed at the small TV in the corner. He turned it on. Breaking news was flashing across the screen. Manhunt underway. A photo of Marcus and Linda, taken from security footage, was on the screen. The headline read, "Disgraced CEO and accomplice wanted for attack on security guards and data theft." Silas spun the narrative, Marcus said grimly. "He claims I snapped, attacked his men, and stole corporate secrets to sell to a rival. If we show our faces, the police will shoot us." Linda looked at the TV, then at the hard drive, then at Marcus. She walked over to her closet. "The police are looking for a billionaire and a waitress," she said. She pulled out a garment bag. Inside was a sharp navy blue pantsuit she had bought for interviews she never got. "So let's not give them a waitress," she said, her eyes flashing with dangerous determination. "Let's give them a shark." The grand ballroom of the Hyatt was a cathedral of corporate greed. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over 500 of the world's most powerful people. Shareholders, industry titans, and a hungry pack of journalists sipped champagne, waiting to witness history. On the raised stage, a massive digital banner pulsed with the words, "Sterling Global plus Vantech, a new era." Silas Thorne stood at the mahogany podium, basking in the applause. He looked impeccable in his bespoke Italian suit, the very picture of stability and trust. To his right sat Arthur Vane, the CEO of Vantech, a man whose sweaty palms betrayed his eagerness to close the deal. "Ladies and gentlemen," Silas's voice was smooth as silk, echoing through the high-end sound system. "It is with a heavy heart that I must address the absence of Marcus Sterling. As the news has unfortunately reported, the pressure of leadership can sometimes break even the strongest men. Marcus is currently indisposed, dealing with a severe mental health crisis. A murmur of sympathetic faux concern rippled through the crowd. Silas bowed his head solemnly. But the company must go on. The employees depend on us. The market depends on us. Therefore, invoking Article 4 of the Sterling Charter, I will be signing the merger agreement on behalf of the Sterling Trust. He turned to the table. The legal documents lay open. The gold pen gleamed under the spotlight. Silas reached for it. His fingers brushed the metal. Boom. The heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom didn't just open. They were thrown wide with enough force to crack the plaster. The room went dead silent. 500 heads turned in unison. Standing in the doorway was not a security guard, and certainly not a catered waiter. It was Linda Vance. She wore the navy blue pantsuit like a suit of armor, her hair pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. Her face was scrubbed clean of the subway grime, leaving only a fierce, terrifying determination. And flanking her, walking slightly behind her like a loyal bodyguard, was Marcus Sterling. He had shaved in a gas station bathroom and donned a black turtleneck and blazer found in the back of Linda's closet. He didn't look like a broken man. He looked like a king returning from exile. "Stop right there!" The head of hotel security stepped into their path, hand on his earpiece. "This is a private event. You are trespassing." Linda didn't slow down. She locked eyes with the guard, her stride rhythmic and predatory. "I know it's private," Linda said, her voice projecting clearly without shouting. "I'm just here to deliver the bill." The guard hesitated, unnerved by her sheer confidence. In that split second of hesitation, Marcus stepped forward, placing a firm hand on the guard's chest and gently, but effortlessly, moving him aside. "Stand down, Jerry," Marcus said calmly, "unless you want to lose your pension too." The guard froze. Marcus knew his name. They walked down the center aisle. The sound of their footsteps on the plush carpet seemed deafening in the silence. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "Is that him? He looks fine. Who is she? Wait, isn't that the waitress from the Obsidian?" On stage, Silas Thorne's face drained of all color. The pen slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table. "Security!" Silas screamed, his voice cracking, losing its smooth veneer. "Arrest them! They are dangerous fugitives! They have weapons!" 4 more guards rushed the aisle. "The only dangerous thing in this room, Silas," Marcus's voice boomed, naturally amplified by the acoustics of the hall, "is your signature." Linda reached the stairs of the stage. She didn't walk up them. She practically stormed them, vaulting onto the platform. She marched straight past a stunned Arthur Vane and headed for the AV console where a terrified technician was managing the presentation. "Don't touch that!" the tech shouted. "Sit down," Linda commanded, shoving a USB drive into the main port. "And if you want to keep your job, make sure the live stream is recording. You're going to want to capture this." "Cut the feed!" Silas yelled, abandoning the podium and rushing toward Linda. "Cut the power!" "Too late," Linda muttered. She hit enter. The massive screen behind the stage, which had been displaying the Sterling logo, flickered violently. The logo dissolved. Replacing it was a gritty, black-and-white video feed. The audience gasped. It was footage from a server room. The timestamp was from 3 a.m. that very morning. "I access the backups?" Linda shouted into the podium microphone, snatching it from its stand. Her voice rang out over the chaos. Silas thought he wiped the security tapes. He was arrogant. He forgot that the server room has a secondary power loop that records to a localized drive. On the massive screen, a giant high-definition Silas Thorne was seen entering the server room. He wasn't alone. He was with a man known to federal authorities as a liaison for the Sinaloa cartel. The audio from the video boomed through the ballroom speakers. "Video Silas. Yes, the assets are stripped. The money is in the Cayman account. Once Sterling signs the merger, the Vantech shipping fleet is yours. We can move the cocaine through the Rotterdam port starting next week. Sterling will take the fall if anyone notices." Video Cartel Man. "And the girl? The accountant?" Video Silas. If she gets in the way, kill her." The gasp from the audience sucked the air out of the room. It was a sound of pure, collective shock. Arthur Vane, the Vantex CEO, looked at the screen, then at Silas. He backed away, knocking his chair over. You told me the logistics deal was with a pharmaceutical company." Silas was trembling. He looked at the crowd. He saw the flashbulbs exploding like strobes. Every camera was trained on him. He saw the police entering from the back, drawn by the commotion. "It's a deepfake!" Silas screamed, sweat pouring down his face. He pointed a shaking finger at Linda. "It's AI! She generated it! She's a hacker! It's all a lie!" "And are the bank records AI, Silas?" Linda tapped another key. The screen shifted. Thousands of documents cascaded down the digital display. Wire transfers. Shell company registrations. The direct link from the A City, Orion Holdings account to Silas Thorne's personal offshore trust in the Maldives. "Forensic accounting is a beautiful thing," Linda said, her voice steady, staring Silas down like a judge delivering a death sentence. "Numbers leave footprints, Silas. You thought you were walking on water, but you were walking through mud." "You little." Silas's eyes went wild. He realized it was over. The money was gone. The reputation was dead. Prison was inevitable, he snapped. With a feral snarl, Silas lunged at Linda. He pulled a small, concealed switchblade from his pocket, a desperate, last-ditch weapon. "Linda, look out!" Marcus shouted. Linda didn't have time to move, but Marcus did. He didn't use a complex martial arts move. He didn't need to. He sprinted across the stage, fueled by a rage that had been building for 24 hours. He intercepted Silas mid-lunge. Marcus delivered a single, brutal right hook that carried 20 years of friendship and betrayal behind it. Crack! The sound of fist meeting jaw echoed like a gunshot. Silas Thorne's feet left the ground. He spun in the air and crashed onto the hardwood stage, the knife skittering away harmlessly. He didn't move. Marcus stood over him, chest heaving, adjusting his cuffs. He looked at the stunned audience. He looked at the live cameras broadcasting to millions. Then he turned to Linda. She was breathless, adrenaline coursing through her, but she was smiling. The police rushed the stage, handcuffing the unconscious Silas and dragging him away as the cameras flashed blindingly. Marcus walked to the podium. He picked up the microphone Linda had used. The feedback whine died down, leaving a heavy silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice steady, commanding the room's total attention. "The merger is off." He looked at Arthur Vane, who was currently trying to hide behind a curtain. "And Vantech will be undergoing a full federal audit starting tomorrow." Marcus turned his gaze to Linda. He reached out a hand. She walked over to him. The spotlight hit them both. However, Marcus continued, "Sterling Global has a new announcement. I realized tonight that my company has been blind. We looked for talent in Ivy League schools and country clubs, and we missed the brilliance standing right in front of us." He placed a hand on Linda's shoulder. "I would like to introduce you to the new Chief Financial Officer of Sterling Global. Her name is Linda Vance. She isn't a lawyer, she isn't a CEO. She was a waitress until yesterday, and she just saved this company from ruin." Linda looked at him, her eyes wide with shock. She covered the mic with her hand. "CFO. Marcus, are you insane? I haven't even finished my degree. I don't have a resume." Marcus looked down at her, ignoring the crowd, ignoring the cameras. For a moment, it was just the two of them. "You exposed a billion-dollar fraud, saved my life, and took down a cartel in one night," Marcus whispered, a genuine, warm smile breaking through his stoic mask. "I think you just passed the final exam." The crowd hesitated for a second, processing the madness of the night. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. Then, another. Within seconds, the ballroom erupted in a thunderous ovation. Linda looked out at the sea of people cheering for her, the invisible girl who used to refill their water glasses. She looked at Marcus, the billionaire who had tipped her $1, now offering her the world. She smiled, took the microphone, and spoke one last time. "Thank you," she said. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a lot of numbers to crunch." 1 week later. The rain was falling again in New York, but inside the Obsidian, it was warm. Linda sat at table 1, the best table in the house. She wasn't wearing an apron. She was wearing a dress that cost more than her old car. Julian, the manager who had fired her, walked up to the table. He was sweating profusely. He held a bottle of vintage champagne. "Miss Vance," Julian stammered. "Compliments of the house. We are so honored to have you back." "Thank you, Julian," Linda said coolly. "You can leave it." Julian scurried away. Marcus sat opposite her. He looked different, lighter. The weight of the world was gone. "So," Marcus said, sliding a velvet box across the table, "I owe you something." "You paid me the 100,000, Linda said. "And you paid off my mother's medical bills. And you bought my building so I wouldn't be evicted. We're square." "Not that," Marcus said. "Open it." Linda opened the box. Inside, resting on black velvet, was a single, crumpled $1 bill. It was encased in a block of solid crystal. "I kept it," Marcus said, "to remind me." "Remind you of what?" "That value isn't printed on a balance sheet," Marcus said softly. He reached across the table and took her hand. "And that the biggest mistake of my life was almost walking away from the woman who was brave enough to tell me the truth." Linda smiled. She tapped the crystal block. "Next time," she whispered, leaning in, "try 20%. Marcus laughed, a genuine, happy sound. "I think I can do better than that." He leaned in, and as the thunder rumbled outside, the billionaire and the waitress closed the distance between them. And that is how a single dollar bill toppled an empire and built a new one. Marcus Sterling learned that respect is earned, not bought, and Linda Vance proved that you should never underestimate someone just because they serve you dinner. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, justice, and romance, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you have done if you were Linda? Would you have chased him down? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching.